A dozen supporters of Confederate monuments, most of them armed, gathered in downtown Richmond today in front of the Robert E. Lee statue. They were outnumbered by over 100 anti-monument activists.
You can love your great-grandparents privately and in Civil War museums, but Monument Avenue is a public space. Monument Avenue is a shared public space, and this space, Monument Avenue, it's like the front porch of our city. You know what I mean? It's kind of like what Richmond is known for, and this is a city that is majority African American. Most of the African American residents of our community are direct descendants of ancestors who were enslaved by the system that these men thought to preserve. And there just should not be towering monuments in public places to these men, period.
At first, the two groups stayed in their own separate areas, fellowshipping and sharing their views with like-minded people. When I shifted my cameras from the anti-monument activists to interview a member of the Confederate States of America too, that is when the two groups clashed verbally.
Very much so. I would say leave all the monuments where they are, add statues to the black Confederates that fought for the Confederacy.
There were no black Confederates that fought! There were no black soldiers!
You're not doing a very good job of keeping the monuments in Tennessee.
Yes, I know history!
Yes, actually we are. The one, Memphis is actually...
Stop coming here and causing our city money.
Okay, Memphis is actually getting sued.
Trying to bring the alt-right to our city.
I did not bring that. I did not invite him.
Crowd control and security was handled by the Capitol Police, Richmond Police, and the Virginia State Police. No arrests were reported, and by 1 p.m., the crowd of anti-monument protesters had largely dispersed, with only occasional onlookers sticking around. I mentioned to Bill Miller, the president of the Virginia Task Force 3% Dixie Defenders, that at the last rally at these statues almost a year ago, that there were hundreds of people there in support of the monuments. But this year, there was only a little bit over a dozen.
Last time we were here, there were hundreds of people on your side. In Charlotte, well, people that were in support of keeping the monuments. This time, it's only about a handful. Maybe not. I'm saying it's a little bit more than a handful. It's about 20 of you guys out here. Dozens to 20 people come and float in and out. Do you think that the support is waning for these statues?
No, I don't think it's waning. I just think people would rather sit on their couch and talk about it than come out here and actually stand.
So, worst case scenario, they pass a law and these statues are allowed to be removed. What can you do? What will you do?
Well, we're going to fight the law.
Legally or fight the law?
We're going to fight the law legally.
But no violence?
Well, I can't say there won't be no violence. It hasn't happened. I'm not going to discount it.
Do you see them passing a law in this state?
I don't see them passing a law to remove it. There's 2 or 3 laws on the books that says they can't be removed. There's not enough people against it that's in the political part of the thing to get the law to pass.
After a racist white supremacist named Dylan Roof walked into a black church in Charleston, South Carolina, and murdered 9 parishioners on June 17, 2015, after praying with them, pictures of him holding a Confederate flag surfaced, and since then, the Confederate flag was removed from the State House grounds in South Carolina. And over 27 monuments and or statues to the Confederacy and Confederate soldiers have legally been moved, relocated, or destroyed across the nation, including cities in the Deep South like New Orleans, Memphis, and Gainesville. In Virginia, it's not so cut and dry. The city of Charlottesville's elected governing body, the Charlottesville City Council, voted to remove the statue of Robert E. Lee in what used to be known as Lee Park. They have changed the name of the park to Emancipation Park, but were ordered not to remove the statue after several groups, including the Sons of Confederate Veterans, sued the city for its decision to remove the statue. We all know what happened next. The deadly Unite the Right rally on August 12th of 2017 that was attended by thousands of white nationalists and neo-Nazis, and they clashed with Antifa and anti-racist protesters, ultimately resulting in dozens of injuries and the death of anti-racist protester Heather Heyer and 2 Virginia State Police troopers. After that fateful day, the city of Charlottesville shrouded the statues with tarps, in a move the city said was to mourn the death of Heather Heyer. Back in February, Charlottesville Circuit Court Judge Richard Moore ordered the city to remove the tarps within 15 days. The city of Charlottesville complied. The court case on whether or not the city can remove the statues is ongoing, and the court is expected to make a final decision later this year. The plaintiffs suing the city have cited a state law protecting war monuments from being removed and say the city has no right to remove the statues without a change in state law. Charlottesville city leaders lobbied the Republican-controlled state legislature to do just that earlier this year, but were unsuccessful. The city of Charlottesville's argument is that these statues are not protected by that state law because they were built in the 1900s as a means of intimidating the city's black residents in the era of Jim Crow. If the statues are allowed to stay, the city intends to erect additional statues and historical markers that will provide a better context about the war. I asked Bill Miller if he would support such a move.
Bill, one of the things I saw over here earlier was this group that was out here today, they said they want these statues removed. They don't even want so to tell the history of slavery. Would you support something like that, statues around these statues to kind of give you a better insight as far as, so there's people saying, you know, you're glorifying Robert E. Lee as a hero, but he was a slave owner. Would you support showing that around there with some plaques saying, look, he was a slave owner, he did this, he did that, and then, you know, just some facts around these statues, as long as they don't desecrate the statue itself?
I say there could be a neutral ground that we could stand on. It's a possibility. No, I'm not quite in love with the idea, but if it'll stop all this kind of stuff, it'll leave our statues in place. Yeah. Let's discuss it. Let's put it on the table.
Now, if the courts rule the statues can be removed, other cities, possibly including Richmond, may follow suit. Richmond's mayor, LeVar Stoney, once supported removing the city's Confederate monuments, but backpedaled on that position after he received a lot of criticism since Richmond was the capital of the Confederacy. The issue is not going away, and those that like to use this issue to promote hate and violence, like white nationalist Jason Kessler did last August and plans to do again this August, will continue to do so until people like this disavow Kessler and the alt-right and tell them to stop. On Monument Avenue in Richmond, Virginia, Theo Whitelow for Breaking Through.
If you're gonna play EU4,